Welcome to Nacho Fitness Coach,
where we're all about keeping it real in the world of fitness.
I'm Sarah, your go-to fitness professional, cutting through the BS to bring you the truth.
And I'm Caleigh, your fitness newbie, here to ask the questions you're too afraid to ask.
From crunches to kale, we've got the inside scoop on what works and what doesn't,
because fitness should be fun.
So Caleigh, what do you like to listen to when you work out?
I don't know, sometimes a podcast and sometimes music.
Hey, wait, this is a podcast. What if you could have both?
At the same time?
Oh, yeah. Podbeat is a free mobile app that lets you add any beat style to any podcast for your workout. It's easy to do and free to download in the App Store. Caleigh, you sound pretty cool with the trap beat, but Sarah, the funk beat works for your voice.
So if you want to make our podcast work for a workout, check it out in the App Store.
They even have Podbeat for Android users in the Google Play Store. Okay, on to the show.
So Caleigh,
So Sarah.
our guest tonight I've known for a very long time.
Well, you're very old, so.
That's true. So I guess that's not really saying that much, is it?
Tell me about our guest. I would love to know more.
So we go way back. Mandy, say hi.
Hello.
We've got Mandy Froehlich
Hi.
on, and we have known each other for 25 years. I feel like we were college roommates for a period of time. And so we kind of go way back, and I have lots of memories of Mandy always being super active, going back to running. And so she kind of took that on as a profession. And so she has a master's in health science. She finished last year her total 5 hours of yoga certification.
5 hours.
500. I even have it written down here right in front of me.
500 years.
500 years, 5 hours. I just cannot get this together tonight. So 500-hour yoga certification.
I have 5 hours in yoga.
Do you even?
Probably.
No. Oh, no. Pilates. Has 20 years of experience personal training, and she currently has a studio that she's an owner of. And so I'm super excited to talk with her today.
If you're excited, I'm excited.
I know that's usually how this works, right?
Yeah.
Except for
Just feed off your energy.
Thank you. Well, yeah. Well, I'm excited. So, Mandy, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I feel like the power of social media is that you have an opportunity to connect with people and you watch their journeys, even though we've went years, I feel like, without a true conversation. I mean, every now and then I feel like we'll exchange messages, like if I'm back in the old college stomping grounds, or like, went and stayed back at the house, or, just like those little personal things. But we've not really talked much about the professional side of everything, really. So we're going to talk about it.
I like it.
It's going to be great.
I'm excited.
Okay. So way back when you first started your personal trainer journey, you transitioned out of college and you pretty much went straight to that, didn't you?
Yeah, I had one job. I was a director at a YMCA for about 5 months before I gave my notice. Realized that actually was not the path for me. I'm actually not very good at being an employee, I've discovered. It's not that I'm not good at it. I just need to do my own thing.
Some people just start out, and I think that's a really valuable thing to recognize in yourself.
Yeah. So I just decided, I think I'm just going to be a personal trainer. And so, I graduated with my master's that year in May. And then that November is when I got my certification for training, and decided I basically did that for, a long time. A long time. 20 years or so. And I started doing a little bit in college. So when I was in grad school, I was a graduate assistant. And so my very first client actually was President Dean Hubbard of Northwest.
Really?
Yeah. My boss at the fitness center was like, I think you'd be perfect. And he likes to come in early in the morning. So I started training him and learned a lot of valuable lessons. He always would say, the one piece of advice he gave me was go to bed and get up at the same time every day. That's my big takeaway.
That's a valuable lesson.
I don't know, but I'm like, I think he was right about that.
Yes. He definitely was.
So anyway, I did that. I also taught like aerobics, and I started kind of chipping away at a little bit of like Pilates in college, and just circled back around to it. And it was a really great, I learned a lot from my clients. You learn so much working with people one-on-one. I think I learned just as much as they learned from me, and yeah, so it was great because I ended up going that route, and it was flexible. I was having kids, and I was able to have a flexible schedule and kind of work when I could and stay at home with them and do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
That was always in the gym setting, right?
Yeah, I would hop around. Like I was at the community center. I was at a couple of different independently owned. They were both women only gyms. And, it's interesting because I worked for so many like small businesses, and I always said I will never own a gym. I will never open a gym, but you never say never.
I always say that too. I say that. I tell myself that every day. I probably never will.
But yeah, here I am owning a studio, figuring it out along the way. But a little bit of that was I turned 40 last year, and I was like, I think I'm just going to stop being afraid of making mistakes. And I'm just going to go for it. And the worst that could happen is I fail. And if I fail, then I know that wasn't the path, but at least I tried. So
awesome. I love that.
I basically gave you 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy how quickly we can kind of summarize that amount of time. But I mean, you lived and learned a lot through that, though, really. Yeah. I mean, and all that time spent in the gym and working with those people has, I'm guessing, kind of translated into your studio and how you've done a great job marketing your studio and naming it and kind of niching out what you wanted to focus on, because it is not a personal training gym, though. Your studio is not.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's a yoga. Yeah, it's a yoga studio. We offer some Pilates classes, but it's really more about what I really figured out for me, especially as I'm aging, is the gym has been great. I still go to the gym on my own. I think a little bit of my pivot was I personally just got burnout of personal training, doing it for that many years. And I knew that I wanted to stay within the world of health and wellness. And I've always loved yoga. I started, back to the running. In 2008, I ran Nike Women's Marathon.
Oh, yeah, we did that same race together. I was on your team.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. In San Francisco.
Yeah, we did because we joined your team because we thought we'd have better chances of getting in through the lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So that was my one and only marathon. And I was running like some half. Well, I quickly realized my body was not a runner. Like my knee was hurting. I was, so I went to a chiropractor. I got some help, and she also was a yoga instructor. So I started going to yoga here and there. And she was like, yeah, when I get really, really, when she would tell me she would get really, feel really really flexible, she would go run to tighten up.
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I feel extremely inflexible. And I danced in college. So there was a point where I was pretty flexible, but I was working on it and then I lost it. And so I think that for me, it was spending a lot of time helping people with their diets. I did a period of time where I worked for an online company for several years, and I helped kind of the psychological, I really did the whole thing when I was training, the piece, the eating piece and the gym piece. And it was such a behavioral science. Like, wow, this is fascinating. Studying people is very interesting. And so anyway, I just kind of got burnout, and I was like, I think I want to go this route over here. And it's been great. Honestly, I think it was just, I want to learn new things, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm this expert at training, because I know there's so much still to learn. But I think it was also just like, oh, let's go over here into like the yoga world, and where I felt like such a beginner, so new. And that felt kind of good. We know now that we got to keep learning to keep our brain young. So it was nice to be a beginner for several years.
And then that transition out of strict personal training kind of into this world has been a good one, I'm assuming, because now you've been sticking with it for a few years. And so tell me a little bit more about what you've enjoyed maybe the most in that transition, and maybe what do you miss about the personal training side of things?
Well, it's interesting because I went from some different gyms, and then I left. I was training out of my basement. COVID hit, and then I worked for a company called B-Shred, and I did online. I didn't do a ton of in-person training, so it was almost like I was already transitioning before I really transitioned. And I think there were some hints of, I think maybe teaching classes and just really getting a little bit deeper. For me, the yoga piece just really penetrates through the mental, so much of the mental game and the nervous system. And, it's interesting because when we think about going to the gym and we're in the gym and we're working our muscles and we're working cardiovascular system or we're working our, muscular system, but we have so many other systems in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was like, oh, wow, this could maybe put a little bit more together. And what really happened was my husband and I went to Scottsdale and I went to a yoga class, and they just did completely different yoga than not completely different, but it was just really fun and interesting. And what really got me was I thought that's real bad. And I was like, I'm spending a lot of time in the gym and I can't stand on one leg. What is going on? And so for me, I started diving into why. I'm strong. I can lift weights. I can move. I can move in the gym.
Yeah.
But I'm not moving as well as I should be or as I want to be. And then I've got this lady over here next to me, or man, whatever, who's like 30 years older than me. And they're standing on one leg with their eyes closed.
Yeah.
So we've got proprioception, we have stability, we have all these different things in our body, and it's so easy. I feel like one of my favorite quotes is, the fitness industry is a breeding ground of obsessive compulsive behaviors. Brad Schoenfeld, I don't know, 15 years ago said that. Mm-hmm. It's so true. Like, we can go down a rabbit hole with like one thing. And what is the body, when we think about the body, what does the body want to do? Well, the body wants to adapt. So the body adapts to strength training and it gets really strong, but we get down that path and we get really good at it, because a lot of people will say, well, I would come to yoga, but I'm not flexible enough. And I'm like,
you're not flexible because you're not going to yoga.
Yeah. My yoga teacher over and over. And I was doing the training. So I did my 200 hour in Scottsdale. I flew back and forth. It was 17 weekends. I did 10 weekends there and 7 weekends online. And he would say, your hamstrings will lengthen. We all have different hip anatomy. We all have different bone anatomy, the acetabulum, the femoral head, the depth of the hip socket, but your hamstrings will lengthen. It may be 1 millimeter a year, but you will get, more flexible. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that you miss about personal training?
Oh, miss about personal training? Not really.
No.
I know. Should I? I don't know. I think I got really, for me, what I've learned about myself, I'm kind of a deep person. It's hard. I can have a surface level conversation and it's good, but I want to what's the last book you read? What's your biggest takeaway? Give me some meat and potatoes. Give me something new, a new idea. And so I like to go a little bit deeper. And so for me, personal training felt just a little more surface, because what happened was somebody would come to me, they would want to lose weight. Absolutely. I can get you to lose weight. They're unhappy. They're,
See, I think that's how I would be.
They're telling me a lot of information.
Yeah. Let's talk about your trauma. Let's dig into why. That's the kind of personal trainer I would be.
Literally, I know.
What happened in your childhood to make you?
Right? Yes. I'm part therapist, part personal trainer. You know this, because we use food to numb, and then we get depressed and we don't do anything. And for me, I felt like there was just so many more layers deep, because I could get people to lose weight and they would get to their goal weight. And then what would happen? They still weren't happy.
Yeah.
It wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Now their skin is too loose, or they need to lose 5 more pounds, and then they'll be happy. And so for me, it was just more of this mental, like hamster wheel of like, you know, nervous system dysregulated, probably lack of mental clarity. And for me, yoga has solved a lot of that.
Yeah, you could only cover
you know,
so much with personal training that, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not everybody, because I've definitely had people who were like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. And, you know, and it was pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they were men, but
Well,
you know, we have like emotional, we're different every day.
yes, for sure. Because it is so true, though. That's what happens a lot with personal training. It just stays surface level and it stays superficial, and it's just that's the carrot that somebody's chasing because they think that's what's going to make them happy. And there's so much more to that. I remember the one thing that unlocked yoga for me was once I started really understanding the power of the breath through the movement. That was like the game changer for me. I mean, I had been to yoga classes and I went to and had instructors that, well, one, the room would be too cold, so it wouldn't be like you'd never get warm, and I didn't feel like I could ever make any progress. But then, two, I'd have a teacher, instructor that never said anything about the breath, and then she'd be going down the rabbit hole of like the right side for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, are we ever going to do the other side? And I never got to the point that I had an experience like I did. Then once I found a good studio for me, a great style of yoga for me that focused on the breath, to where I finally then understood the power of that with the movement, with just finding a way to just stop thinking about things and focus on you. Yeah. So
totally. Yeah. I mean, if we get into yoga philosophy, you know, the very first sutra is yoga is now. Like, it is so great to give your mind supplements. I like looking at yoga from the philosophy and the science because they really match up when you start studying them. And yoga is now. You have no other option when you are thinking about your breath, breathing into your belly. There's no other place your brain can go. So it's a little great vacation from reality. And so really for me, what it is it's taking the realization of the breath and getting out of my thinking brain and into my feeling brain, getting connected with my body. And that's, you know, when we talk about personal training, you can take that and go, yeah, I can really decrease my risk of injury if I'm actually really paying attention to thinking. Because when we think about, when I can really pay attention to what I'm doing, because I'm thinking about what I'm doing and I'm mentally there, even though that takes more mental energy, you know, it transfers, you know, because so often we're just kind of lost in the flutter of like, wherever we are, you know, there's just not, it's very easy to not be grounded and rooted. And so for me, it's a good like recalibration of like, okay, here I am. And I don't have to think about all this other stuff over here. I can just really be here. And that feels so good.
What's your favorite style of yoga? It is good to take a break. But for me, it was finding the style of yoga that could allow me to take a break. So what's your favorite style? Do you have one?
So I'll say this. No. It depends on the teacher because I've had so many teachers.
It depends.
Different.
That's my favorite answer.
Types.
Right?
Because they, you know, so when I first started, I went to a studio downtown and it was called Prana Flow, and it was a solar flow class. So it was a little heated. It wasn't hot. It wasn't Bikram. I've done a Bikram class. It's not, I don't know if they call that anymore. He's like banned from the US. So it might just be like hot yoga now, but flow, moving with the breath. And I have to be able to take a full inhale and move. And then there's a pause. And then there's an exhale and there's a movement. And so vinyasa, you know, I love vinyasa. Vinyasa means to place special attention to, you know, what you're doing. And so when you're moving in sync with the breath and the goal, there's not really a goal in yoga, but if we were to think about what we want to do in a vinyasa class, it's to move evenly and sync the breath with the movement, which can feel really nice. Yeah, probably like a flow vinyasa, but I really love lately more some yin. I've been doing a little bit more of that. It is more advanced mentally for me because it is really focusing on how poorly I have the ability to sit still.
Yeah.
You know, I can move. I'm such a fidgeter. You know, you're like,
Same.
you're running, you're doing, I'm like, I'm always doing things. Like, and you and I always connected because you're like fire. You're like doing things. Like, what are you up to? There's always something going on. She's getting her master's. She's going here. She's opening a gym. She's a personal trainer. She's on the cover of a magazine. Like, all these things, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I get it. So to do the opposite and do absolutely nothing, you know, just, you know, that's hard.
Yeah, it is super hard. So how long of a period? I mean, I had not taken that style of yoga class before. So what exactly is that? What does that one entail?
Okay, yin yoga is really focused on the plastic parts of our body. So flow yoga is more what is it? It's the muscles. The flow yoga is more like the muscles, and the yin is like the joints. The connective tissue, the ligaments, the bone to bone. Anyway, all of that stuff. Mostly your joints. And so it's the idea is that you're going into a pose and you're holding it. And it depends. Like I went out of town, I went to Austin for a few days and I went to a yoga studio and I did a yin and stretch and I really liked that class. She just had us hold it for 2 minutes and then she kind of had us move. Like, so let's say we're doing a forward fold. We'll hold the forward fold, but she'll say, you know, if you want to sway a little, you can sway a little. So then there's so a lot of times people attach another, you know, like yin and something else. But traditional yin is you're holding the pose anywhere from maybe 4-ish minutes, but it could be up to 8 or 10. One of the first classes I did, if you're familiar with Happy Baby, lay on your back and bring your knees, you know, into your chest and you can grab your feet or ankles or whatever. And she was like, okay, we're going to hold Happy Baby for 8 minutes. I was like, what? I'm going to die. There's no way. I mean, it was so hard. But what it highlighted for me, because I'm kind of in this mode of doing things, doing things that I'm not used to, or, you know, like in contrast to what I normally do is I really suck at being still.
Yeah. Oh,
and awake. I can be still and asleep, but being still and awake is hard.
That's so hard.
I feel that.
I was going to say restore. I think I took it was a restorative class but every pose was 5 minutes. And I was like, I can't.
That'd be a long time.
It was hard. I did not like
so
it.
Hard.
At all. So
yeah, it's so hard, especially for me. My nervous system is more in that sympathetic range. I'm more like, so that feels good because I'm always there. But then when I go down into parasympathetic, nothing, my brain is like, ping, 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 you know, it won't turn off.
I start thinking about
So
all the things.
I view yin yoga for a lot of people as a little more advanced because it's really going into that mental space. And so, yeah.
For me, Ashtanga is my favorite. I mean, it's a flow, but for me, being so controlled about so many things, I found myself going, shocker.
I didn't know that.
No idea. But for me, if I would just go to a regular vinyasa class, if I couldn't figure out the teacher's pattern or when they were going to flip sides, I would obsess with thinking about it. And so for me, Ashtanga, it is the same set of poses everywhere you go, anywhere you take it. I mean, the pace could be a little different based on the teacher, but for me, that gave me a chance to finally stop this, you know, thinking that was going on. I focused on the breath. I knew what was coming, so I didn't have to worry about it and I could really get into it. And so it took a long time though for me to find a style and a class that I could actually enjoy yoga. And I think that happens to a lot of people. They just stop trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, the very first class I went to, it was actually in 2005 and it was an Ashtanga class.
Really?
And I hated it. But I think it was because what I've learned is, my 200 hours in Ashtanga, so the teacher was he taught flow, but his lineage or whatever you want to call that is Ashtanga based. So we learned Ekam, Dve, Trini, all the, you know, the rhythm to get into Sun A or Sun B or whatever. And I can see how that can be really comforting for people. You know what it's going to be. And there's the comfort in the familiarity to it. And then so I do like that. I don't mind that. It's very, it can be very rigid, like a rigid, so like, where I would consider like a little bit like masculine, like you're hitting the poses, boom, boom, boom. And then that can feel really good. And especially if you've done strength training, because it's like, oh yeah, I've got that. And then the prana flow is a little more dancey and a little more like, and it was flowy. It felt a little more watery.
That sounds horrible.
Like a little bit of both. What?
I don't know if I could do that one. I mean, you have the dancing background, but right now you're like, I'm like, oh, that would be really hard for me, I think.
No. Yeah. So lately, my 300-hour, the teacher was mostly, and this is I had not heard of this before, but I really dove into it. It's really alignment based. It's called Sara, which the guy who started it is no longer doing it. There was a whole big thing, but a lot of people will call it, alignment based yoga. And it's really just taking this concept that there's an optimal blueprint for every body. So maybe you're in Warrior One and you're wrapping your front outer hip back and you're rooting down through the back outer foot, but then you're lifting. So it's a lot of cues like that. Some people are like, I don't even know what you just said. Lift my inner thigh to the sky, And then some people are like, just keep that up, tell me more, So yeah, I think it's just trying different teachers, trying different styles because they're very different.
Very different. So how did that transition? Like, I mean, I feel like yoga and Pilates are similar kind of with ish. I mean, I don't want to like cross. I mean, I'm probably going to start some like online comments war about people with like the yoga versus the Pilates. We're canceled. My only experience with Pilates was after I graduated college and moved to Kansas City with my aunt and uncle. I bought like the Windsor Pilates DVDs from Beachbody. And that was like, because I was a huge Beachbody person. Like, I think I had everything. And so I remember doing that, but outside, I mean, I've not ventured into Pilates really much at all after that. So that transition came naturally then. Did you start adding that? I mean, or were they kind of together?
Yeah, because I dabbled. There was a gal when I was in college. She was older than me, and she kind of mentored me, and I taught a little bit of mat Pilates. I mean, I wasn't certified. I was certified in group exercise, but not exactly Pilates. But we kind of did a class. And then in 2010 or so, I did a certification for mat Pilates, not equipment. Okay, so they are similar, I would tell you, because they're both connection of like your mind and your body. And that's where I think they get grouped together, because you really have to have a conscious awareness of moving your body. You're tuning in. And my favorite definition of Pilates is working the body from the inside out. So if you think about your bones, and then the muscles that are closest to the bone, those are the muscles we're working in Pilates, versus strength training is typically more muscles closest to the skin. So I like that because we're getting to some muscles that we maybe wouldn't typically get to in the gym, which really can support inner stability of the body. And in order to move well, we have to have access to deep core stabilization, and that core is defined as the hips to the shoulders. And if we don't have that, then we're too mobile in our spine, and then we lock up in our shoulders and our hips. So I feel like it all kind of works together, which getting into a little bit more mobility, but I do think that it kind of can be complementary.
Yep. Well, and that core and pelvic floor, which that was another time like we did that continuing education together too. It was that pelvic floor class.
Oh yeah.
That core and pelvic floor. Yes. I still have that ball. I actually lended it to a friend here because she was having pelvic floor issues. And I was like, I got exactly what you need. And
I have pelvic floor issues. You never lent me your ball.
Have you talked to me about your pelvic floor issues?
We did a whole episode.
That's true. Well, you didn't talk to me about it.
Well aware of my pelvic floor issues, Sarah. Don't sit here and play dumb with me. You never offered me
that was ball. How many seasons ago? No, I'm kidding. That's probably because my friend, she still has it, I think. I don't even remember if she brought it back. I don't need your ball anyway.
Here's my thought on the pelvic floor. And it really was how will I say this? When I was training, I felt like there were major gaps in some of the strength training we were doing. And some of the programming, a lot of the programming was coming from men. So they're really not, they have pelvic floors. Men have pelvic floors. It's more around different anatomy. I mean, it's the perineum, but anyway. But I'm like, why are we not? We're working like the outer half of the, we're working with the outer hip. So like we weren't working other than the inner thigh machine at the gym. Like, that was like it.
Which is not your pelvic floor really at all.
Yeah. So the inner thigh line can connect to when you're engaging your adductors. There's 5 adductors. So right now I get obsessed with muscle body parts. For a while it was the butt. Muscles of the body. And now I'm obsessed with the adductors. There's 5 of them and they're in varying lengths. So we have a really short one, we have 3 medium length ones, and we have one that's really long and goes over the knee. So I have this gal who will come in. She's got the Pilates and she's got some like pelvic stuff. And we realized like short adductors just isn't really firing because some of them will and some of them won't. But if you engage that fascia line, your deep core does have to turn on some. But you also have to know how to turn on your deep core. So there's that. And that's the mind muscle. So, but, and some people just hate Pilates because it's a lot of mental energy. Like they don't want to have to think about it too much.
It's just me. It's so much easier to just go turn on a treadmill and just like TikTok.
Yeah. Turn on. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what this is. She just goes through and swipes.
Well, it depends on what your goals are.
It does depend on what your goals are.
My goal is to be on the treadmill watching TikTok.
Then it works out well for you. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. We did actually have, she's a physical therapist that specializes in pelvic floor.
Oh, yeah.
And we had her on. She's also from Aurora and she's got a business and that's what they specialize in. And so we had this whole conversation with her about pelvic floor, and women do tend to have more symptoms of weak pelvic floors for a variety of reasons, but men can suffer from it too. And, we all just sit a lot and we probably don't have super active cores like we should and all that fun stuff. So Pilates is good for men too.
Oh yeah. My husband goes, so he comes every week to my class because he had his meniscus removed when he was in high school, which was like a really bad decision for the long term, but short term, I guess it got him back on the basketball court faster, which was just really dumb. So he has muscles because in Pilates, the mat Pilates program is you'll do some things face up, like laying down on your back. You'll do some things side lying. You basically position your body in different positions according to gravity as your resistance. So a lot of the side lying stuff is so good for people with knee issues. I mean, you go to a physical therapist and they're like, yeah, do plans. And it's like, yes, turn on those muscles.
Right. So. There's so much more to it, and I do feel like that's what ends up happening a lot of the times is they just get hyper focused on one source of medicine and what they say. And then, they're just, you said earlier, all the systems are connected. Our body is a very complicated, complex thing.
Yeah.
And there's a way that we can move well and we can live well and everything that connection is super important. And a lot of people really don't probably have it all connected.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit of what I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole with yoga and Pilates is empowering people to understand the process in which to connect with their bodies more, which will just serve them in the long run. I can go and do something and my brain will tell me, you can do that. And my body is like, hell no, you can't do that, And so it's like figuring out, as we age and like, maybe I don't want to do that because it's really not going to be worth it. I might screw up my back or I don't know, whatever it is.
Have you ever heard anything about go ahead.
No, you go.
You were talking about your body and, yes, no, or whether it's feeling like it or not, and just being in tune with what it's telling you. Have you heard anything about biofeedback?
Well, are you talking about like the electrodes?
Well, there was one continuing education weekend that I did. That was a certification that it was just it was a women's fitness weekend that was in Kansas City at one point. And there was a gal that came down, and her and her husband had, I don't know if it's still open anymore, a gym in Minneapolis. And their whole big thing was, it was a biofeedback gym. And they had this whole process about basically, before you would say squat, that they had this pattern that you would kind of move through the motion, not loaded first, to see if your body was prepared to do that movement that day or not, based on, whether stress levels, how well you'd eaten, how well you slept, whatever else. And so she would swear that the times that she didn't listen to this kind of pre-lifting process, that she would get injured. That was her.
It sounds like a lot. That's a lot.
I know. It sounded like a lot because they did this whole presentation around it and kind of like, here's our philosophy and this is how we do our gym and this, this whole, it was, and I should have like kept up with it a lot better than I did, because at the time I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And then like one of the breakout sessions was, we're actually going to teach you how to do this biofeedback basically. And so, I don't know, it was just really interesting. You
hooked up to like, where it was monitoring your body,
no, but it was like, it was something about like, I feel like you had to get into a certain part of the movement and then you had to hold it and you had to see if you would get back into that same spot or if it would like cut you short somehow. Now this is going to drive me nuts because I need to like unlock some.
Just to tell you, if you are.
Yes, if your body is ready to load that movement, yes.
I can't get behind it. No, I hate it. Cancel. I don't like it. That's just, we're getting, it's like, can we just stop?
That one's a little bit too much.
Can we stop?
But there was science behind it and all the things, and that's when they did.
It's not that serious though.
But see, Mandy's leaning in, like she's kind of intrigued.
I'm not.
Well, I'm like, it could be interesting. Like to me, it's like such a external. When I think about biofeedback, have you heard of biofeedback? So when you were talking about biofeedback, I know I haven't done biofeedback, but I've heard it where you have maybe some electrodes on and there's some eye movement. I don't know. And it has to do with your brain and your
like
body
real testing
or whatever. What?
Like real testing, like real scientific, like testing.
Yeah. Not like that.
I'm going to dig up.
I'm going to look it up though.
I'm going to go back through my notes because I know I took notes from that.
I don't like any of this because it's
do you think it's too hokey?
Well, it's making something that I think a lot of people are looking to get fit in a way that is not complicated. And then you get into it and you hear this stuff and it's like, oh, so it all just has to be complicated. You got to like do this biofeedback to make sure you can do this squat on this day. Like, no, I refuse. I hate it. I don't like it. I'm not signing up. No, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
There you go.
That's how I feel about that.
I like
feel
it.
Very strong. I didn't know until 2 minutes ago. How
you just got really super aggressive about that whole.
Really got me going. I'm stop complicated. But that being said, I think you two obviously both know there is value in that. It's just like, I think when you're like coming at somebody like me,
brand new,
who's just like needs this to not be complicated. I'm like, no, I don't subscribe.
It's too much. Yeah. But I agree. I mean, I think as a movement, if you're like a movement nerd where you're like, tell me more.
And that's just it. Like there are those people out there and like, apparently it just depends on what your goals are. And that's just not my goal. I don't need to know. I don't need all that.
Well, because the vast majority of people just need to move.
Right.
So if you get to your facility, you do a squat prep and it's like, go home, not today.
Yeah. Yep.
You're like, what did
I showed up and now I can't do that. What's going on?
Yeah. And so I think there's definitely a difference. And I've kind of felt the same way, like when we've talked to Nick on the podcast and just like, he really like geeks out for this stuff. Like he loves it. And Caleigh's eyes gloss over when we start getting too scientific and I
with
think
stuff.
there is a wide array. I think we have a wide audience. We have people on different ends of the spectrum. And so I'm just kind of trying to keep the voice
Rein it into the regular people.
For my people.
People.
Just move your body.
Which is the majority people. So like a yoga class or a Pilates class, something that's instructor led, would be a great fit then for that, because you kind of, I mean, you just have to be there and just listen to the instructions and get the byproduct of it from
Yeah, that's all I want to do. Tell me how to do it. Teach me how to Dougie.
Teach you how to Dougie. I don't even know what that is. That's not my genre.
Jiminy Christmas.
It's okay, a dance or something, right?
Jeez, no, forget it.
All right, forget it. Jeez.
It's really obscure.
Okay, so there we go. So there's a little bit about yoga and Pilates, which we haven't really talked a whole lot about either one of those lately, or ever. I think this is.
We talked a little bit about yoga. I don't know much about yoga. I've dabbled.
Definitely no Pilates, because
Definitely
I really
no
don't have
Pilates
any
ever.
knowledge about that. But I do like your definition of each of them between like strength training versus Pilates, just for people to understand the difference and how they can all be beneficial.
Yeah.
For you, which you know.
Yeah. There's so many different types. I mean, a lot of people are loving the reformer Pilates. Like, it's fun. You know, people are drawn to toys. So like an apparatus it is fun. Like, to do, you know, use the machines, do different things. I think people find that they're feeling more flexible. They're feeling, you know, they're going through these ranges of motion that feel kind of nice. And it feels gentle, like they don't feel beat up. Because the other part too, I think, to the yoga and Pilates, like my world in both of those is, if life feels, I have 3 kids, it's busy. Like, life feels a little stressful sometimes. And the last thing I want to do sometimes is just go beat myself up at the gym. You know, maybe I want to do some movement, but maybe it's something a little bit more just gentle and just feels kind of like a warm hug. And not to say that going to the gym, you know, it just for, as a woman, it's not, I say as a woman because we're so different every day. You know, like, there's just times in the month that I just need to sleep. And then there's times where I'm like, I have a ton of energy. This is going to be a great, you know, I would always say going to the gym, you know, getting a workout in, it was like 3, maybe if I was lucky, times a month that I would feel like that was an amazing workout. Most of the time it's like, oh, I'm tired and I'm still moving, I'm still doing it, but you know, it's not always going to feel great. So just to have the variety and get out of the pigeonhole of like, I just need to do this. Typically, you know, when you find a weak area of the body without any judgment, just like noticing it's there, and you get it stronger or you put a little focus into it, it's going to help other areas. And that really is what happened with yoga. I mean, Pilates too, but for me, it was just like, wow, I feel so much better. I can move better. And yeah.
So really kind of the whole takeaway from this episode then is just try new things. Feel like you can do something that moves your body in a way that feels great. And particularly with yoga and Pilates, if you went to one studio or had one instructor and you didn't really care for it, don't stop trying.
Yeah.
Keep going. There's value in it. There's benefits. It can definitely be a part of kind of your journey. And it's got a lot of positive things that can happen. But you want to enjoy it though too. So
yeah.
Don't give up on it too quick. So I like it. Do you have any other questions for Mandy about this? I mean, I think this was a fun topic.
It was a fun topic. Can we talk just maybe a little bit about, it's a really important, goat yoga?
Oh, have you done goat yoga?
I haven't. No, but it's very big.
It is
It's
big.
a very big thing.
I don't know why. I don't
know.
really like farm animals in my face when I'm working out.
More people need to be talking about this, and I feel like more people need to be. I would do goat yoga.
You would?
Well, yeah, there was we had an opportunity to do it last year. I think you were going to be out of town. It's like at the state fair or something. But
yeah, there was goat yoga.
We need to keep that on the radar, because I think if I'm going to do yoga, it's going to need to be with a farm animal. You know what I mean?
Can it be just another farm animal? Or
Yeah,
just goat?
that's another example of just so many different types of yoga.
Yeah, right. Don't just find something that you
If you don't like yoga, try goat
You
yoga.
might need to do yoga with animals.
There we go. And it might be your like new thing, your new favorite thing. So awesome. Well, I love it. Well, thanks, Mandy, for being on and sharing
Mandy.
your time
It
with
was
us and
nice
all
to
your
meet
knowledge.
you.
And
Thank you, guys.
it was great. So that's all we have for today. So then until next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to head over to our Instagram at Nacho Fitness Coach and let us know how you feel about the topic. Do you love it or hate it?
Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening. And if you like our podcast, leave us a rating. See you next time.
You've been listening to Euphony Innovatives Sonified.